All right, we are going to try to get a good start on our radial symmetry cards today. So you guys can see this is kind of what we're going to end up with something like. Yours, of course, is going to be unique to you. So might look slightly different, but just something sort of like this. So let's rewind a bit and go back to step number 1. I also want to mention that yours is going to be lightly drawn with pencil. However, mine's drawn in Sharpie. Here's why. This is actually, no, because you can see it through there. Look at that. If I draw in pencil, this is what it looks like. You can't really see it super well. So for that reason, I'm using Sharpie on mine, but you should be drawing very lightly, if you guys can see that, very lightly with pencil on yours, because you're going to have erasing to do, and we don't want to see those pencil marks, so drawing lightly is going to help with that. All right, so first things first, you're going to need 2 pieces of paper, our nice drawing paper, a little bit thicker, because we are going to be painting on these eventually, right? So the first piece of paper, I'm going to want you to go ahead and fold it in half, hamburger style, just like this, okay? So fold that in half, hamburger style. And then you're going to put it center. Let me grab something that's on the floor here. There we go. Put it in the center of your piece of paper. And then you're going to, and make sure, sorry, when I say center, just kind of verify that all the edges have the same width. Okay, so making sure it's as centered as possible, not crooked like that. Just, you know, get it as nice and centered as you can. And then once you're done with that, you're going to just very lightly use those straight edges to trace around the outline of your paper. And so by the time that's done, you're going to have basically this frame, right? None of the stuff in it quite yet, but you will have this frame for which your picture for your card is going to go. Then here, you know, in these corners, that's where we will eventually put your king symbol or queen or jack or joker or whatever you're choosing to have this one be. Okay. So next step, we need to have, since we're doing rotational symmetry, we need to make sure that when we rotate it, it actually is symmetrical. So by setting up some grid lines, dividing this into quarters, it's going to help with that. So that's going to be our next step. Now I made mine dashed lines just so you can kind of tell the difference between these lines and then the border. Yours is just, once again, you're going to be drawing with pencil very lightly, so you're just going to lightly draw and lightly draw. We do need to make sure all 4 of these are exactly equal. Okay, so there's a couple ways you could do that. If you have a ruler or a tape measure, you could get that out and measure. Okay, so this is just under 6 inches. So I would mark it here and mark it here, just under 3 inches. Then I would take the straight edge and connect them. And then of course I would do the same thing on this side. So this is 9 exactly. So at 4.5 I would make a mark. And then up here again at 4.5 I'd make a mark, and I would take a straight edge and draw it that way. Okay, so that's if you've got a ruler or a measuring tape by you. If you don't though, I've got a trick that'll also work just as well. So the other trick is going to be, so you remember that piece of paper that we had folded in half, right? That we went, center that. So that piece of paper, right? If we fold it in half, hamburger style one more time, so now it's like a quarter of what it was originally. Check this out. It's half, right? So I'm going to line this up with that edge down here where I drew the line, and I would draw with my straight edge across like that. Now I still do need to get this line though, so I'm going to open that back up, and now I'm going to fold it hot dog style, and when I do that and line it up, you can see that it's perfectly half of this. So once again, just draw that line on down, and I know you guys can't really see this super well, but you should have a perfect grid with those quarters in there. Okay, so 1/4, 2, 3, 4. Cool. So next thing that we need to do, your playing card, we need to decide whether it is looking straight forward or if it's going to be looking to the side with a profile. I'm going to be doing mine straight forward, but you get to choose for yours. They both have their positives and negatives. So remember that with this first card that we're doing here, this is going to be representing you. Okay, this is going to be a self-portrait. Now that doesn't mean that it has to be like photorealism self-portrait. It's a card, it's a playing card, right? So it can look a bit like cartoonish. That's totally fine, a little abstract, all good. But what I want you to do is take a look in the mirror and look at the shape of your face, okay? Like for example, if you're looking at mine here, it's very oval shape, long oval shape, okay? Some people might have more of like a heart shape. Some people might have more of a square shape, maybe circular. Just look at the shape of your face and we're gonna wanna try to mimic that on here. So once again, you'd be doing yours in pencil. I had to do mine in Sharpie. And because of that, you can see that they don't exactly match. If I had been doing this in pencil, I would erase that. But anyway, find a spot on here where you want that to go. And actually, I'm gonna start on a new one just so you guys can see it a little bit better. So I'm gonna get those lines on here too, so we can see it a little bit nicer for you guys. All right, so there is my center line. And then my other one, my other center is right here, okay? I'm not gonna do the frame, you can kind of see it. Anyway, so my next step would be to draw my head on here. Leave a little bit of room from the top of the frame because you're gonna wanna probably have hair or maybe a crown or headphones or however you want to accessorize your person here. So leave at least a finger's width, I would say. Make sure that you make it big enough. You don't want to have, like some super tiny head there. Like that's going to look crazy, right? We want it to be pretty big. I would say, maybe about 1.5 inches long or so would be good, or 2 inches even, something like that. I'm going to put this one right on center. Once again, I've got kind of a long oval shaped face, so there we go. You can see it's just slightly off to that side. So now what I'm going to do, rotational symmetry. We have to make it the same on both sides. So as soon as I'm done drawing something on one side, I'm going to flip it and draw it the same on the other side. I'm going to use my finger to kind of measure where the top of it started. So feel free to use things like your ruler or finger, or sometimes I'll use like a pencil to measure things to make sure that it's the same on both sides. Okay, so here we go. And we're gonna, once again, you guys are using pencil, so it'll be easier, but try to draw that exact same shape over here, okay? And so when I turn it around, it should look the same. Now I need to do a neck, right? So a lot of people, when they draw necks, will draw them so they're like this wide, like that, okay? That's like a Barbie neck. If your neck really looked like that in real life, your head wouldn't be able to stay elevated. There wouldn't be enough meat and muscles to hold your head up. So I want you guys to kind of notice with a neck, it's kind of hard to see on the screen here, but your neck is actually going to like come up pretty much right to your ears, right? So it's almost just as wide. I mean, look at yours specifically, but it's almost just as wide as your actual face is. They tend to usually kind of curve in a little bit and they curve back out as it meets your shoulders. Then we also have to think about the fact that with rotational symmetry, we need the lines to connect, okay? So like I wouldn't want, let's see, I have a different color here. I'm gonna ruin this other one all the way. You wouldn't want on one side for your shoulder to come to here, and then on the other side, it would be over here, because like, what is this space? What's happening there, right? Like that would be really weird. They have to connect. So the easiest way to do this is just to make sure that let's get my neck in here first. Let's draw that, and then we'll work on the shoulders. So there we go. I've got neck on one side and neck on the other side. So the easiest way to do this would be to come all the way to the corner. Then you know they're for sure going to meet. But sometimes that doesn't, like, it might not look right. Like for me, if I were to have this come all the way out to the corners, that would make my shoulders look really wide because of how low my head is on this page. And the size of the head, so it wouldn't really match up. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to probably put my shoulders to like right about here. Now I need to measure that though, because it needs to be the same on this side too for rotational symmetry. So here's where I'm going to use my pencil, and I'm just going to kind of mark that. Okay, so you don't need a ruler always to do measurements, do you? Because now I know that from tip to the side that those are going to be the same. All right. Once again, yours is in pencil. I cannot emphasize this enough because a lot of these lines you will eventually be erasing. We're just kind of getting the basic outline right now. So now I'm going to come over and down for my shoulder, and over and down for this shoulder. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. So over and down and over and down, and we can see how they meet. Okay, so once again, yours is in a pencil. How many times did I say that, do you think? Lots. Obviously yours would be you'd be able to see the frame on yours a little bit better too, but by the end of class today we want something kind of like this going on, like your basic, like here's the shape of what's happening on this card. Now your homework is going to be we need to jazz these up a little bit tomorrow, right? We're going to be adding hair, accessories, clothing, all that kind of stuff. So start looking around at pictures. You can be looking at actual playing cards and looking at what kind of outfits they have for there. But you don't have to do the whole like royalty thing that they do in the deck of cards. Maybe you want to be dressed up as a wizard. Maybe you want to be dressed up as a knight or a rock star or in a costume. I don't really know. But you can definitely do that. You can dress up in other ways too with this. But think of accessories for on your head and accessories for, you know, necklace or tie or things around on your shoulder, all that stuff. And the more of that kind of stuff you add to it, the cooler it looks. Maybe sashes, maybe with suspenders. It's like, what are those things called? Yeah, right? So think of all that kind of stuff. So for next class, you want to have a solid idea of how you're going to be accessorizing and dressing yourself in this card. All right, we'll see you then.